Hello, everybody. Hope everything is all right. Oops. So, how is everyone? Everybody is going well, hopefully. And here we go. There we go. Everything looks right. And my other computer is restarting, so I'm going to try to pirate radio stations. See if we can hear all of that. And welcome aboard to this shortwave radio channel. So let me log into my PC. I was installing a Insider Preview build so I can start my SDR. So welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Shortwave Radio channel. We are live with a radio show twice a week. We are live on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 0 UTC. So for a big part of the world, it's Thursday, actually. And we are live on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 20 hours Universal Time. And of course, we talk about radio. And we just have fun with radio. And hopefully everything is all right in your part of the world. So this is a show where we talk about radio, shortwave radio mainly, but anything radio often goes. Medium wave, long wave, shortwave, because yes, there's still stuff to listen to out there. A lot of people have the impression that this is a hobby that is an old hobby that nobody does anymore, that the internet took its place. Far from it. There's still a lot of people, and that's not counting all the amateur radio operators out there. So it's kind of cool to see that there's still a lot of activity and a lot of people doing this. And we are a great gang. There's a beautiful chat room when we do the live show with amazing people that we all share the same passion. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. That's the northeast part of North America. This is where the show comes from. And tonight I have my vodka and cranberry juice because I didn't have beer that I really wanted. So cheers. And hope that you enjoyed the show for tonight. We have a great chat room with people that are really friendly and a lot of fun to talk to. And we share our knowledge of radio together. It's a great place if you're a newcomer to the hobby, or maybe you don't know what shortwave radio is all about. Well, you're here to learn that, and it's a really amazing place for that. What also is nice, when all this is over, when the party is over, there's a Facebook group that goes with this, which is the same name as the channel, official SWL channel. And we, of course, are having a lot of fun there. So, it makes this hobby feel less like it's something that we do alone in our little man cave. And, it's we're part of something bigger. We're part of a gang of radio hobbyists that have a lot of fun together. And this is where the Facebook group continues, basically where we leave the live shows. So I hope that you have fun and you can join, of course. Official SWL channel. We're at 844, 45 people, something like that. It's growing fast. and actually, I think it's growing faster than at the beginning. So there, you can share what you're listening to, videos, pictures of your shack, your listening experience. Share what you're listening. Ask people questions, and of course, it's a great group because that's the place where we don't accept any kind of of bad language or of anything that isn't acceptable. No politics, no religion. uh, we only want radio, and we want friendly people and people that help each other, not people that are there to belittle others or make others feel like they are dumb or anything. And that's the great part of that group, is everybody there is there to help. Everybody there is just there to have fun, and it is really, really cool. And we are helping out. I was looking just today, the Facebook group. We helped someone with his Texan PL880 that had problems. All sorts of suggestions, and one suggestion worked, and the radio's back to normal. Another one with noise. Another one with all sorts of little details, little things like this, and people just learn, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." I say it very often when people say, "Well, my radio is broken and I need to send it back," or well, I'm never gonna buy that brand again. Very often, there are things you can try that brings it back to normal. Remember that today's radios, they are small computers in reality. I mean, the PLL-driven radios from 2020 are little computers that actually are radios. And well, the CPU can get zapped. There could be some weird malfunction. When we say we restart a computer, well, sometimes you can reset the radio. But one of the tricks today, and it's one that I don't know how many times it worked for me in weird situations where things didn't work. Your radio is weird. It reacts weird. The buttons don't work or whatever is bizarre. Remove the batteries for 24 hours and try it the next day. I don't know how many times that trick saved my radios. Quite a few radios that I had, even because the reset resets the CPU, but sometimes the glitch is somewhere else. Sometimes the glitch is not where the reset is going to fix it. And you remove the batteries, and what it does is it makes all the capacitors go dead, go down, drain. That means that there's really no more current inside the radio. Because remember one thing, and it's one part of the circuit that is a problem. Sometimes you can remove the batteries for an hour, but an hour might not be enough. The capacitors might still have enough electricity in them in certain circuits that it's when you put them back, nothing changed. But you do it for 24 hours, and what you notice in 24 hours is that made a difference, because the capacitors went to zero, and whatever state maybe one of the internal circuits was in actually is reset to its normal state. So it's so weird, and that's electronics. There's weird things happening sometimes. And a lot of the problems occur very often in our own manipulation of the radios. Plugging in external antennas into a portable. Well, maybe the external antenna had some static on it, or you touch that telescopic with your hands, and it's very dry inside your home, and you zap a circuit. Sometimes it's not enough to zap the radio itself, but it puts it in a weird state that doesn't work well. And well, what's cool with this is that by removing the batteries and everything, kind of resets all the stuff. And so and it's cool because just look at the group. We help people, and it's really, really nice to see a bunch of guys that are giving their own opinion and trying to help others that might have a problem. And sometimes you might have a problem that nobody else has have seen. I remember once with the SDR play device, somebody says, "Well, I listen to single sideband signals, everything's all right." And then, he says, well, when I go to AM signals, they're all distorted. And, people gave all sorts of things to try. And I gave one that worked, which was, make sure that the low frequency and the frequency you're tuning aren't the same. I had that distortion. When both are the same, that is when it's distorted. And he tried it, and it was like, it fixed the problem. So, sometimes that's little tricks. And there's some experience. I mean, we each have our own experience, personal experience of things that have happened with our own radios, and we can share that and help others at the same time when we're sharing that personal experience. So it's kind of cool for that. So let's check out did I mute something? Oh, I know. Okay, squelch. Okay, here we go. I'm back online with the radio. This is my main insider machine has now restarted, and SDR Uno is now working again. So, okay. Always nice to have everybody on board, so I hope you enjoyed the show today. Bobby Burgess, WA5107 SWL in Morgan City, Louisiana, USA. Nice to have you here. Roberto Rojas, nice to have you on board, my friend. Buenas noches. CQDX says Steve 94044. Nice to have you on board. It says, I find it amazing at the little electronics a battery and a chunk of wire will produce. Absolutely. It's, you look at a circuit board and you look at, all the trace and the circuits and the chips, and you're like, well, I can't believe that does what it does. It's weird. What else do we have? Steve in the San Francisco Bay Area. Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona, USA. Shitty Pyro 90, nice to have you on board. Rick, W8PRR, WOHP1390, nice to have you here from Ohio. Tom DXer, nice to have you on board from the lower Hudson Valley, New York. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you here from Central Georgia. Brian Penny, Radio Cuckoo from Ireland on 6290. I'm going to try it. Yesterday was a very weird trace. So, if I tune off when I'm in sideband, I can hear the tone. There is definitely a carrier. And it does have a trace on my waterfall. Unfortunately, it's just too noisy here to make it. But it's definitely there on 6290. What else do we have? Esteban, nice to have you here from the Canary Islands. Pretty cool. David says, here's the coronavirus there. The epicenter in Georgia is the Atlanta area. In central Georgia, we are relatively safe. Here in Montreal, it's the worst place in the province, and we are actually the worst city in Canada. While the rest of the province of Quebec is kind of starting to slowly get back into normal life-ish. Montreal is shut down, and it's I suspect that Montreal will be shut down for another few weeks. It's shut down until May 25th here, and nothing's open except groceries and very basics, stores, pharmacies, stuff like that. As for the city, I don't think it's going to open at least before sometime in June. So I just got to take it easy and made myself a couple of homemade masks to wear that are very simple. A design I saw on the internet, which is 100% cotton that I used as a t-shirt that I just don't like. So I cut it into pieces of fabric. And inside, where the mouth and the nose is, a coffee filter. There was a very interesting article where they were saying, you know what? Just put a coffee filter in the inside, and you are okay. It's an okay mask. And you just remove the coffee filter, clean the mask, put another coffee filter when you go out, and you got a homemade mask. And I need 3 of them, so like that I can switch while the other ones are getting cleaned and disinfected. Because obviously I think we're going there. I think Montreal at some point it's going to be like you got to wear a mask wherever you go, even though it's not mandatory here. That's what's going to happen at some point. James Powers, nice to have you here. KC1ENJ from New Hampshire. Rufus Newt from the chilly Laurentian Valley, Ontario. It is cold. It is cold. So it is. This is cool for this time of year. It's nice that trees are starting to have leaves. So there's like a greenish tint in the air. When I look at the overall trees, because there's a lot of trees here, it's starting to get kind of a greenish tint in it, which is very nice. Wannabe, blue wrenches, moderators, so that the troublemakers are kept out. Esteban, it's past midnight and listening to Radio Martin 9565, likely in the limit of antenna pattern, but still the signal is very good. Cool. After Crafter's Kitchen, nice to have you here. And in the Massachusetts FRG7 capital of the world. I like that. Hi, Brawler. Nice to have you here from Northeast Arkansas. 45 unit. Nice to have you here from Florida. 76 Fahrenheit. Not bad. Not bad. Says great job with the videos for shortwave listeners. Yeah, and more are coming. So, and I've got tons of ideas and stuff that I wrote down with all the comments that everybody actually shared on my question yesterday in the Facebook group. So there's going to be a lot of these coming soon. What else do we have? Let me just check something here. Yeah, okay. This is okay. Here we go. Narrator 1, nice to have you on board. W5BL, nice to have you on board from sunny Central Texas. So 51440, I had nothing. 5780 is there's something there, but it's not very strong. It's not very strong, but I do hear something on 5780. Laser Hot Hits is probably the European I hear the most usually. I've got a very weak signal right now here. And 7315 for those that are looking for a strong signal, probably. Voice of Vietnam, very strong English, 7315 kilohertz via WHRI. So nice to have you all here. Shortwave Fanatic, nice to have you here. And cool. Happy to help out. Wood Beast, nice to have you here. And hope Tim is going well. I haven't had any news from Tim in a few weeks, maybe even like a month at least. So yeah, Rob, like I said, it's a 100% cotton t-shirt with a coffee filter inside. So that gives it a good enough protection. And what's nice is that, you just make it at home, make it yourself. And I took a t-shirt, a blue t-shirt that I didn't like because it didn't fit me well. And I cut it, so I was able to make like 3 or 4 of, I think I have enough fabric for 4 of them. So it's kind of cool. So Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Kema Hain, nice to have you here from Yokohama, Japan. Nice to have you on board, and you are on Thursday morning over there. Dark Noise and Nail, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Wood Beast is in Baltimore, Maryland. Harry Crab, nice to have you here. Ruffle Man 336. Nice to have you on board, Alex, and from Southwest Ohio. And it was nice. It was nice to be at the meeting on Saturday. It was nice to have everybody on and put faces to some names that you see from time to time. That is always something. When you're at the distance, you guys see my face all the time, so you guys could almost probably, especially those of you that have been watching me for a while, you probably could cross me on the sidewalk and say, "Hey, Joe." But the majority of you guys, I have no idea what you look like, and it's funny because when you read a name or you hear a voice, especially a voice is special because you hear a voice, and for some reason, a voice puts a face in your mind of what a guy might look like. I got this big voice, so people tend to, like, I don't know. I remember someone one day said, "You got a big man voice. I'll tell you, we're a tough guy." I said, "Well, no, I'm not really a tough guy, but I do have a big voice." But when you see people, it's always kind of surprising. It's not the way that you thought a person would look like. Terry Cook, KF7BQ, nice to have you on board. Keegan, XN80Xer in Northwest Arkansas, 82 Fahrenheit over there. That's perfect outdoor weather. Wood Beast, have you tried any weed? I haven't. It's kind of stuff that I haven't touched since ages. Jeff, nice to have you here in Pennsylvania, M2ZNN. Estrella Garcia, nice to have you here, Estrella. Cool to have you on board. Artist Alleycrafters Kitchen says there's a virtual Hamfest in a few weeks on YouTube, taking the place of the Dayton Hamvention that was scheduled for this weekend. And remember, there's an event this weekend. Huh? There's going to be a Hamvention on the air. So on Saturday, during the day, there was going to be some amateur radio operators that are going to be operating all Saturday for the Dayton Hamvention. So it's a on the air event to replace kind of, it doesn't replace totally, but it's kind of, they wanted to do some event for sure. So check that out. There's going to be a lot of ham stations probably for that on this Saturday, this coming Saturday. Joe Rutman from the Chicago area. Nice to have you here, my friend. Harry Crab is 60 miles east of London. Nice to have you here. Jeff Gay, nice to have you on board. Jeff Gay is asking a very simple question that is a very good question for a lot of people. Is there a correct orientation for a wire in between trees? The beauty of a wire antenna, when it's, not very long, and when I say not very long, 100 feet, 150 feet or less. If you have a 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet wire, whatever, is that it's not very directional. The shorter the wire, the less directional it is in general. So it doesn't matter much the orientation, east, west, north. If you have multiple trees to test out, what you'll want to try is not the orientation for whatever you're listening. It's going to be the orientation where it has the least amount of noise. And what I would do, and what I do in general for a basic test, if you have multiple ways, multiple orientation, different trees, you can put that wire out. what you do is, one of the easiest and simplest thing that I do is I look at like 10 different frequencies, starting at the bottom at 3 megahertz, for example, and going all the way up to, 20 megahertz, 28 megahertz, 27 megahertz CB band. And what I do is I take note of the noise level, the Hess meter, how high is it? How much noise is there? Or that indicator on the radio, how high does it go to? Then I change the orientation and I take note of the noise there. Is it higher, lower? Is it the same? And if you can try several orientations, in the case of a wire that's 50, 100, 150 feet, just choose the orientation where the noise is the lowest possible noise you can get. That's how you're going to set it up. As we get into very long, because I say a long wire, but honestly, a long wire below 150 feet or something, it's just a wire. A long wire is actually longer than that. But as you get longer, so people that do beverages, which are like 1,000 feet wires, the longer it is, the more directional it becomes, and it is more and more and more directional as it gets longer. So, but for practical purpose of most lengths of wire, we all use, my sloper in the backyard, 75 feet. Now it's at a sloper angle, so it is a little more directional, but still, for 75 feet of wire, directional pattern is not enough to change anything. Plus, shortwave signals tend to be pretty much a mixed bag of stuff when they get here. Orientation or it's like on the loop. Same with the loop. When I look at my MLE30 and my W6LVP, it is very directional on medium wave. It is very directional on signals on shortwave that are not very far from me. So CHU time signal 3330, I can null it out actually. But a signal that comes from, Radio Romania, Voice of Turkey, or whatever on the other side of the world, that when you rotate, you have almost no difference. And that's why often, even for a loop, what they'll say is choose the lowest noise. That's going to be the best way of installing it, basically. VT Radio, nice to have you here from Essex Junction, Vermont. Paul, AA1SU. What else do we have? Facebook there's nothing wrong with Facebook and safety. It's not less safe than anything else. It's social media, and they use, it's not worse using Facebook, honestly, than using Google to do a search every day. But it's a thing, and it's okay. Some people don't want to be there. It's fine. I have no problem with it. Keegan is doing reception with Field Grunding Edition, Ethon Grunding Edition Field BT Radio. Rufus Newt says, the more I hang out here, the more I spend. Oh, man. What else do we have? Rob says, great idea, should remove batteries for 24 hours. I don't know how many times that fixed problems for me, at least. What else do we have? Let's go down. Outers Out of Crafter says, battery removal for 24 hours is the reset method that works on modern sets. Yep. Because there could be some issues that the reset will work, but there are some things that sometimes only the battery will fix. John Doe, nice to have you here from St. Louis, Missouri, home of KMOX. Lee Thompson, WA8QFE in Indy, nice to have you here. Russ Gladden, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Pretty cool to have everybody here. Laura Byrne, nice to have you here. Can you get a normal headphone adapter for the small transceiver that has the strange sized headphone jack with mic? I'm not sure I follow you here. Can you get a normal headphone adapter for the small transceiver that has a strange sized headphone jack with mic? You mean like in a smartphone that has several different? You have the microphone and a headphone in the same little 1/8 or 3.5 millimeter jack? Because usually these, even with a regular set or pair of headphone, actually work in general. Rick Satter, nice to have you here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Stephen Wood, nice to have you on board. Seems to be tuning up on 6860. Powerful signal. No program yet. So let's check out what's here. I do see something here. I see anything else? Can't see much of a signal of anything right now. I do hear signs of summer for me. You know when I was saying there were signals that are summer signals for me? 6754 Trenton Military Station from Trenton, Ontario, Canada, which is the Canadian Forces Weather Volmet Station. 6754 upper sideband. Not bad of a signal right now. Kimberly K6YYL, nice to have you on board from California. I need to go to California one day. If there is a place in the US I would like to visit, is the West Coast. I've been pretty much everywhere up and down the East Coast. So West Coast would be nice. Maybe someday when viruses are gone and David KJ4CMY says bummer about Montreal. Yeah, it's a big city. That's the problem with big cities, I think, everywhere. John McClure, nice to have you on board, my friend. Let me just make sure I don't miss out anybody. If I did, simply say hi again. I'm right now exactly 13 minutes behind in the chat, by the way. Frank Ireland, nice to have you here from Florida. Artist Out of Crafter's Kitchen. So, Gilles, I'm not kidding. The Frog is the most sensitive receiver I've ever tuned. Got up early this morning and heard signals from Asia I've never heard, including Sound of Hope from Taiwan. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure you didn't hear a Sound of Hope because Sound of Hope is like a very, very weak below 100 watt signal. So you probably heard a CNR1 jammer, which is still nice to receive from China, actually. Because I haven't seen anybody receive Sound of Hope in North America in any logs anywhere. It's a very low powered operation. So I don't want to give your hopes down, but it's mostly, I'm pretty sure you probably heard the CNR1 Chinese jammer, which with their Chinese programs. But I hear a lot of good things of the Yaesu FRG7 as a really, really nice radio. That's for sure. It's one of those popular and everybody that has one loves it. Jasper Holiday, nice to have you here, my friend. Project Null, nice to have you here. Is there an email address for your podcasts? Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. Ram says, I agree, Joel. I've heard many people's voices and videos on radio, Twitch, and when I finally see their face, it never matches the face my imagination created. Yeah, it never works. Never works. Never works. John Doe. So that's what I was saying. 6754 is Trenton Military in Ontario, Canada. Understand the times. Nice to have you here. KC8KSK, Tom, South Carolina. Doing some scanning and monitoring one of our 2-meter repeaters. Cool. Hey, Jeff King. Nice to have you here. Caesar. Nice to have you here. RSP1A, SDR Play. It's better than RTL SDR dongles. Can you tell me the differences? Thank you. There's a huge difference. First of all, the RTL SDR dongles are, for the most part, really crappy at what they do, with very little filtering, where the RSP1A has filtering. The RTL SDR dongles are 8-bit devices. The RSP device is a 14-bit device, which makes it an improvement. And RTL SDR dongles, even set up at their best, never get even close to the performance of the SDR RSP1A. And I've been playing around with the with this one here. If I can get it. I've been playing with the with this one for the past 3 or 4 days. This is the RTL SDR V3. This one is a little different from the very cheap ones. VHF, UHF, okay, but long wave and medium wave and shortwave, I mean, is okay, but there's tons of spurious signals and things that pop up everywhere that don't even exist or are images of other broadcasts or stuff. RSP1A is and I will keep saying it until somebody shows me a better device, less expensive device that does it all. I still say that the SDR Play RSP1A is the best entry-level SDR that somebody could get. If you have to get one, get that one. Then after that, of course, there are other ones, some more expensive from different manufacturers and so on, that might be equal or beat the RSP. But for the price that it's sold, its price point versus performance, RSP1A is the king of SDR at that price. William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. James Farley, nice to have you here. Do you remember where you're from? There are a few names like that I always forget. Every time I see it, it's like, oh yeah, but I always forget. Always forget. Yep, 106 watching right now. John Doe listening to Herb Talk Live on WWCR 4840. CJ, nice to have you here. Nope, not ham operator yet. I do have my transceiver waiting for me to get my license, so I need to get that. Audio Assault, nice to have you on board from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And MLA 30 Plus, cool. Great antenna. Wannabe, love my XH data, excellent radio because of you. Now on PL880, R108, and PL380. Lots of fun. Cool. Mickey Delmage, nice to have you here from Sherwood Park, Alberta, with his 20 Celsius. Right now here it's 12. Was at best today about 15, but it was very windy, so it wasn't very, very nice. Arthur's Crafter's Kitchen. Do you get any spurious signals or images with the MLA30 that used to be the issue with powered antennas of the past? Not on my devices that, like the SDR Play, zero. I do not get any images of any kind from the MLA30, which is very nice because absolutely amplified antennas, sometimes that's their The downside is that they have these spurious signals uh, popping up in images everywhere. Not on the MLA30. I haven't seen any pop up on the MLA30. Where it happens is at the radio end. When the radio, like a portable radio, sometimes you'll see a few images because it overloads the radio, not because of the antenna. Because once you plug it back to, say, my SDR play device or my ICOM, that signal isn't there. So if it was from the antenna, it would obviously be there even on the big radios that I have. But on the big radios I've got and I use, I don't see any images of any kind with the MLA30. What else do we have? Simon Templar, nice to have you here. Crittenden Total 4, KJ7NUX, nice to have you on board. Nicolas Galileo, nice to have you here. VE3WDM, nice to have you on board from Ontario, Canada. Pretty cool. Kimberly says that would be great for you to visit California. Oh yeah, I would love it. I know I would. I know I would love, absolutely love it. Rufus Newt very rarely gets Trenton. Good now. Cool. Cool one. Nice to have you on board. Says, Dear Jill, you have done or could you consider a video on tips for buying vintage used radios? Pitfalls, things to watch out for, deal killers. Yeah, I talked a little bit about about that a little bit in some of my videos already. It's like buying tube receivers. It's buying vintage radios, buying old radios is a touchy thing if you can't test it yourself and see it yourself, because so many people have really had bad experiences in the past because of that. So basically what happens is that the radio gets here and it's very beautiful out on you look at the radio, it looks nice, looks almost brand new, but inside once you open the box, it's like everything's rusted and in bad conditions. A lot of radios have, when they're old, especially when they're really old, the chances of somebody somewhere among the line of where that radio went that maybe opened the radio and tried modifications in it are high. Or people that try to fix the radios, but they just don't know what they're doing. There's so many things you got to be careful. It has to be really from a good seller, and you got to have some guarantees there, so to make sure that if it's not like it should be, you're just returning it. And the other thing also, is like if you buy it online and the guy says, not tested, yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. It's all. It doesn't work. So so you got to be careful, and there are a lot of things about radios like that could also be difficult to notice. Something that the circuit isn't going well, so it's not as sensitive as it could be, or the radio seems to work, but some part of the radio doesn't, or it's a very tricky thing to do. I'm going to check it out, Artus Alicrafter's Kitchen, but chances are you probably got CNR1. I don't want to put you down, but it's Voice of Hope is so weak that out of Asia, even in Asia, the reports of Voice of Hope are very weak. And CNR1 is pretty much on all the frequencies of Voice of Hope. Mr. Lucky Train, nice to have you on board from Pennsylvania. Thanks to listening to you. I now have both the MLA30, MLA30 Plus. Cool. Farney Jr., nice to have you here. Jeff Barrett, nice to have you on board from north of in Cincinnati. North of Cincinnati. Kemma Haynes says, in Yokohama, I think I have heard Son of Hope one time poking through the jammer, but still not positive it is crushed by the jammers. Yeah, it is pretty much. That one is particularly targeted by CNR, by the Chinese jammers. So most of the time, what you get when you try voice the Sound of Hope from Taiwan is either a Fire Drake with the Chinese music or the CNR1 national radio over it. But it's a very weak operation. I don't remember how many watts, but it's like, they're kind of using like 100 watts or even less. It's very small operations. So audio assault with the MLE30 Plus and RSP1A. That's a great combination. Steve Miller, nice to have you on board from Arizona, USA. Mr. Lucky Train. Would replacing the wire loop that came with it with a loop made of different material improve its signal? If yes, what would you suggest using? I've seen a lot of people do these tests, and the tests that are done from almost everywhere that I see, two types of tests that they've done on the MLA30. One is replacing that wire with copper tubing or whatever. The other one is replacing the coax with the SMA connector with like a BNC connector and a different type of coax. And from my experience, for the most part, none of the two change anything. Or if they do, they're so small changes that it doesn't really matter much. And I can tell you, I've got one horizontal, I've got one up. It spent all winter outside like that. And from what I can tell you is that it's fine like it is, honestly. It's fine like it is. And I'm honestly, almost everybody that I've seen that changed that wire with copper tubing and so on haven't really reported much change. Some say yes, but the majority of what I've seen in videos also, no difference or very little. What else do we have? What else do we have? Mr. Lucky Train, please tell us. Whoops. I lost Mr. Lucky Train. Please tell us what mic and webcam you're using. I'm using a Logitech C920. Logitech C920, which seems to be very hard to get these days, and it's very expensive. The microphone is a Maono, Maono, USB microphone that comes with the articulated with the arm and everything, and is amazing. I totally love this. Great sound, very quiet. It's paid something like 80 Canadian dollars on Amazon. I was looking at microphones at one point because I needed I wanted to have a good mic for my videos, and this one popped up and it had a really high score. People that purchased it really loved it. So this is really, really nice. So my setup, camera and mic, are a pretty nice setup here. I gotta say. William Helms sent is some shots of his listening post. Let's check it out here. So Simple but effective. So, the chair, the radio, and the antenna. And if it works well, that's all you need. So, kind of cool. Kind of cool to see this. So, pretty nice. Just looking at a message. We have Elizabeth saying hello also from Regina, Saskatchewan. And hello there, Elizabeth. Nice to have you here. And I was just looking at something else. Don't forget, guys, this May 17th, which is Sunday, apparently All India Radio is resuming shortwave broadcasting after being off of shortwave for because of COVID-19. So remember that. And so let's cross our fingers that next week we might hear All India Radio. I don't know when Radio Exterior de España will resume its English and French and Portuguese language broadcast, but right now it's still Spanish all the way. It's only Spanish national radio right now. Steve Miller, no, Jill, don't go to the dark side. KD6SPB. Frank Ireland says, loving the RSP1A with my outdoor antenna, still waiting for the MLA30. So cool. You're going to have fun. Both of them together is great. James Farley's from New Jersey. So what else do we have? So like I've said, my email is officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. If you have a radio you want to donate, maybe you have a CB with single sideband you don't use anymore, want to send it to me, that'd be fun. Arthur's Other Crafter's Kitchen says, no, I want to try my try the MLA30 on the FRG7 and Satellite 800. So it says, thanks for helping me spend more dollars I no longer have. I think it's going to improve. It depends. Okay, wait. Well, let's go back again. The MLA30 is a great antenna, but I have to say that the MLA30 is no magic antenna. In an environment where a long wire or wire antenna performs really well because there's not a lot of noise, you actually might not see any improvements with an MLA30. But with a noisy environment, if you have your antennas, you might actually see that it's going to be better. And I mean, I think that's the positive side of the MLA30, is that in noisy environments like here in Montreal, it is great. Nicholas Heyer, nice to have you here, Nicholas. Nick K9XN. What else do we have? Archer's Auto Crafters says, knowing the history of a vintage radios really helps. My tube sets were all my father's. If I buy online, I'll haunt the seller with questions. Yeah, well, especially when some of them are expensive, you want to know what state it is, Lee Thompson lucked out and it has a perfect Drake R4B. Frank Ireland says, I have been trying to get my RSP1A to work with Android SDR Touch. Does not recognize the device. So you have installed the driver from the... so if you go on SDR Play website, they point you in the direction of you need the driver for the RSP device. The latest version of Android Touch, SDR Touch for Android. Remember that driver needs to be there. You have two components that are required for the device to actually work. So the driver for the RSP device and the latest version of SDR Touch together. Those will work with the RSP. If you just have SDR Touch, plug in the device, it won't work. It requires that RSP driver. So go to the SDR Play website and check Android and check the instructions carefully. One last thing that could happen, because it does, is it is not impossible that on some Android, that's a problem of Android devices. Some Android devices have a hard time having the device work, and make sure you have a very recent Android operating system. If you're on an old like Android 6 or whatever, that might not work with an old Android version. Wannabe says, tell Paul in cat language, my cat, 18 years old, sees the vet tomorrow. We were due for the annual visit of Paul to the vet, and because of what's happening, we'll see a little later. So 18 years, wow, that's a nice old cat. Hope he's well. Hope the visit to the vet is not for the wrong reason. John Doe, what purpose is the small reset hole on shortwave radios like the DX398? I've never had to reset a radio. Well, that's the thing. These radios are like little computers. So in some instances, for example, I have to reset my DX398 once. It froze. I touched it. I probably zapped it with static electricity with my hands, and it just froze. It wouldn't respond to any button. It wouldn't even turn off. That's where the reset has been useful, because it actually resets the processor, and that probably is what froze up. So the reset is because these radios today are small computers. They are really not just radios like in the good old days with analog circuits and so on. I actually saw something today. There's a website. So there's a website that somebody sent me that sells the Texan H501, which is like $650. And it's probably the first run anyway of the radio. But I did see something that caught my eye and thought was interesting, but I don't have a lot of time, so I didn't do it. But for like something like $20, 25 US dollars, they have a 8-band shortwave radio that you build yourself. You have all the parts, and it even has a digital readout, which is probably one of those radios with a frequency counter, but still, it had all the parts, everything, and you build it yourself. I need to find it again and share it with everybody. I don't know if it works well or performs, but it could be a fun weekend project to build a 8-band shortwave radio by yourself. It's kind of cool. What else do we have? Lots of stuff, Audio Assault. Lots of radios and goodies in there. Joe, something on you, House. Nice to have you here from Brazil. Mr. Lucky Train, you're a different route tonight, or change around viewing angle your setup? Background is different than in the past shows. Oh, that's because I have two backgrounds. I have the background with the pirate flag and the analog radios for the most part, except, okay, the icon it's not an analog one, but for the most part, this is the side of the analog radios with the pirate flag. And I have that side that is in front of me with the SDR and the desk. So that's because you've probably never seen this side. So it's just that I'm in the same room, but not the same side of the room. Leonard, nice to have you here. Leonard Lakey says, I've been enjoying your shortwave radio for beginner series, even though I have been a shortwave listener since before you were born. what is interesting about a beginner series, there, like I always say, there's a side to our hobby. There's always a side to our hobby we have less knowledge. And even a beginner series, sometimes we learn new tricks or we learn things we didn't know. So sometimes it's fun to actually view the beginner stuff because there might be something you missed out, or something that your knowledge isn't as good about, that suddenly you hear and it's like, oh, okay, that's how it works. Even there are things that I see, and sometimes it's almost embarrassing. I'm sure everybody in the chat and watching the show has been in that situation. You've been doing something for a long time, and one day there's one thing that you read or one thing that some guy says, and you're like, oh, that's what that is for. Or, oh, look at that. I didn't know I could do this. And you almost feel embarrassed because you're like, yeah, how dumb can I be? I didn't know that. Or I didn't understand that. Or I didn't notice that it was used in that way, you know? And it happens to everybody. I mean, there are things sometimes that, for some reason we haven't clicked that it must be like that. And then somebody shows you and you're like, oh, okay, I've been using it all wrong all along. Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Composer Space, nice to have you here. Where are you located, my friend? It's nice to have you on board and know where everybody is. Kevin Wood, nice to have you here from Nova Scotia, Canada. Webbit 219, nice to have you here watching my beginner tutorials, and more to come. I'm going to post at least 4 or 5 tomorrow. I'm trying to ramp up the production of those beginner videos, and they're quite popular, actually. I was looking at the views. They're quite popular, actually. So hope that you enjoy and learn. And Webbit's going to buy his first shortwave radio. So we're going to have, of course, one of the beginner videos will be to choose a radio. What's the thing to look for, and what you need to know before you buy. Composer Space, what's up with the flag? It's pirate radio. Rogers Alley Crafter's Kitchen. Shannon Volman was everywhere this morning. Everybody saying hello to Elizabeth. Kim Haynes says, cool, on in the radio. So Bobby Burgess, yeah, absolutely. Renovations are being halted right now. It's almost nothing's open. And I went to the store for the paint stuff. It's a little complicated right now, and it's super complicated, and people are going crazy. So it's like not the right time. Because right now I was supposed to be pretty much in all of that, and this setup was kind of gone. But I think what I thought I was gonna do is do it in steps, because I see that now it's going to be kind of complicated to do it all in one big move. So I'm going to do it in steps, and this will be the last room to be where I'm going to do it. So when I get to this room now, that's going to be the time when I'm going to have to I'm probably going to take a week or two off of live shows, or I don't know, maybe I could do the live shows in another way, or if it's middle of the summer, well, of course I could do the live shows outside. So we're going to check it out. Jim, I'm thinking about getting an MLA30. Is there a recommended height for mounting outdoors for optimal performance? It's mostly mounting it where the noise is the lowest, because the MLA30, even if it's just 10, 12 feet off the ground, is going to work great. Height isn't that important. It's what's more important with the MLA30 will be to position it where the noise is the lowest. That's the best way to position it than anything else. So in some cases, being higher might help. In some cases, it might simply be at a specific place on your in your yard or whatever. Keegan, on Saturday the 9th, received Regina FM station CJLR FM 90.3 and CHMX 92.1. CHMX over local KQSM Fayetteville, Arkansas. Wow. Would have been funny that you said, Keegan, that you got 90.3 CKUT. Rufus Newt, my random wire will many times outperform the MLA30. However, the reverse is also true at times. Yeah, there could be some situations, I guess, where the loop is, maybe it's specific frequencies that you have that actually are really getting that for sure. So it's there are frequencies that have more noise maybe on your wire that the MLA30 helps you get better on some frequencies at places. I would see that probably where it outperforms is where your wire maybe is noisier. Because honestly, if I would live in the middle of the woods, I'd put 200 feet of wire out. I know it would be better than the MLA30 probably. But in a noisy environment, we got to say the MLA30 is magic. It's just crazy. Randy, Riverside, California. Nice to have you on board. Audio Assault says you can have the Galaxy DX959. Hey, I'd like that. Keegan says, correction, CJLR FM4 on 90.3. Cool. This is nice. Radioactive, nice to have you here. William Helms, watching a Dr. Fong video. I'm now sold on the Conicom GP5 after he said that his lab developed the chip. Yeah, well, the Conicom GP5 is a nice, sensitive radio and everything. The easy tuning mode functionality is amazing. But boy, does it need a keypad. If that thing had a keypad, it would be in my top favorite radios that I always have. Because tuning on the frequencies, like you want to tune 27 megahertz is awful. It's crazy. You have to use the memory channels of the Conicom GP5 in an intelligent way so that it makes it simpler to tune the frequencies that you want to tune. Because, boy, no keypad on that thing drives you crazy. Take care. Have a good night's sleep, Esteban, in the Canary Islands, and stay safe. William Helms, always something new to learn. Absolutely. Harry Krabs says, I know it's been said 1,000 times, but I do miss the golden age of shortwave before the web was everything. Yeah, but it's a past that. What's at least nice with the the newbies, the people that start shortwave today, is they never knew that past, so they don't know what they're missing of that time period. But I have to say that anybody like me or older and that been listening in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Man, it's yeah, I understand. Sometimes I think about it, and I do miss that time period for sure. But we gotta take what we have, and that's the important part of it. And that's why I do all of this, is to get out there and say, look, there's stuff to listen to. There's still a lot of stuff to listen to. And you can whine all you want of, well, it's not like in the past. You can, I get all the time the people saying, well, the internet killed shortwave. Not at all. The internet has very little to do with the demise of shortwave. Um, Shortwave is a different medium, and it was already in decline way before the internet ever arrived. The internet did not kill shortwave. At the other side of the scale, and I always say it, there's shows like this. There's schedules updated all the time. I would say that the internet actually enhances our hobby a lot, which is really nice, and it probably enhances pretty much every hobby. I mean, stamp collecting. I'm sure there are tons of stamp collectors' websites today that, if you had all that information in the past, it was, you had to buy books and stuff. And, um, the medium of shortwave was in decline, started really declining actually at the end of the Cold War. The end of the Cold War meant the end of a lot of shortwave broadcasters. A lot of them suddenly couldn't see why they would be continuing to broadcast some of those, to the world. There was no more mission, so we're not communist anymore. What do we talk about, And for a while, it worked with some stations, Radio Bulgaria and all, but at some point, what really killed shortwave is money, much more than anything else. Money. Maintaining a shortwave broadcast is it's expensive. I mean, transmitting with a couple of hundred kilowatts to the world costs money, and when the government gets to the point where it needs money, it's easier to shut that down than to tell the people, well, we're gonna cut your paycheck by increasing taxes or whatever. They go where it's almost invisible to everybody. So the shortwave broadcasts are some of the first things that are gone. William Moser, nice to have you here. John Doe, COVID virus scare brought out the pirates. I've seen more pirates in the past 4 weekends. There are pirates every single day, pretty much, and it's crazy the amount of pirates I've been listening to in the past few weeks. If there's a good side to our hobby and pirate radio, if you love pirates, it is just amazing, the amount of pirate stations that have popped up on the shortwave bands since there is all of this happening. So it's really crazy, and it's fun. I've been enjoying listening to all these pirates as time goes by. Nerissa.vlog, nice to have you here. Caesar, when you listen to Romanian language at Radio Romania International, what language does it look like for you? Romanian. Actually, I haven't really compared Romanian much with anything, except maybe sometimes kind of part of my brain kind of linking it somehow to Russian or something. But there are languages that do connect and sound like something. So for example, there's some African languages that I hear on Voice of America that sometimes when I listen, because I speak French, will for me sound like a heavily modified version of French. It's like listening to Portuguese, which has that mix of different languages in it that kind of is interesting. Spanish that has some similarities with French in certain ways. But when you listen to, so if I listen to stations like or if I listen to Romanian on Radio Romania, it's one of those languages where I have no reference, no link to anything. The funniest thing about Radio Romania, there's a style in their programming, and the fact that that woman that does the English language programs is the same woman that does the Romanian and French. You listen to that, and I recognize her voice all the time. I don't know how many language that woman speaks, but it's pretty amazing. But there's a way that Radio Romania, I will get on Radio Romania frequency, and without even knowing, and if it's a Romanian, without even knowing it's Romanian, the style and and that woman talking, I'll almost immediately say, "Oh, that sounds like Radio Romania." Fun fact about Radio Romania: I was at so I'm at a bar once, and there's a guy listening to some music in his with his phone, and he thinks he's gonna be a wise ass. He thinks he's gonna be like, telling me something that I don't know because I'm, a stupid, Canadian or whatever. So I'm having my beer, and he starts talking to me, and we talk about different things, and then we talk about music at some point, and he takes his one of his earbuds and he says, "Listen to this. I'm gonna pay you a beer if you can tell me what type of music that is from what country." And it's so funny because I'd heard so much music from Radio Romania. I could have missed. I could have, because there's similarities a little bit sometimes with what I've heard from like Bulgaria and so on. But I listened for like 10 seconds and I said, "Oh, that's Romanian music." And he looked at me and says, "How do you know? You're Romanian?" I said, "No, but I know Romanian music, and I hear Romanian music regularly." And I didn't go into details because when you start talking about shortwave, it's the best way to have somebody go to sleep. So he was like so surprised at the fact that I could tell him, it was Romanian music. And it happened the same with at another time with somebody that was trying to trick me and said, "What type of music is this?" And I said, "Oh, that's Turkish pop." And he said, "How do you know it's Turkish pop?" Hey, it's playing on Voice of Turkey all the time. So, even though I don't listen to it much, it's not my style of music. The style it has and everything, because I hear it on shortwave, oh, that's that type of music. Casper Peterson, nice to have you here, my friend. Been a while. How you been? Reverse News got another loop coming. Keegan says it would be cool to receive CKUT sometimes. When I have it, I'll let you know. That'd be cool. That would be cool. I mean, you telling me, "Hey, I got CKUT." That'd be really cool. Even more cool if it'd be, like during the International Radio Report. Artist Ali Croucher says loves is inverted L's, but MLA30 does have me curious. Seems like a very reasonable price for performance. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In a noisy environment, it really is surprising sometimes. Wallaby says, used to be Mr. Simba. My real name now going to use is W.M. Powell from Seattle. Cool. James Farley has 9330 kilohertz, which is World's Last Chance, WBCQ, with 500 kilowatts. What else do we have? Artist Other Crafter's Kitchen says, so happy to have lived through golden era of shortwave, 70s through 90s, but I do think this global lockdown has sparked a renaissance. What is interesting is the fact, like I was saying, that there's more sales of walkie-talkies. Shortwave Listening blog, the shortwavelistening.com blog, was mentioning that there's a rise in people buying radios. So, you know what? People are a new interest in radio suddenly, and understand that radio is a way of getting some information about everything that's happening, actually. Marvin Mutz, nice to have you here. The internet is killing free speech. Shortwave is a medium to revive free speech. Every person can join digital text communications worldwide. Let's get started. Shortwave has no on-off switch. So if a country isn't happy with what another country says, apart from jamming, and perfect example is China. Another example is Cuba. You can't stop the other country from giving out that that communication and saying what they want to say. And that's the beauty is somehow, that we were in the middle of a big Cold War in the 80s when I was listening. And the beauty of shortwave was that I could hear everybody's opinion on it. I could hear the Western Bloc countries. I could hear the Eastern Bloc countries. I could hear everybody somewhere in the middle and have, their own opinion, viewpoints. And that was free speech. Totally. I mean, Radio Moscow was giving me their point of view, and Swiss Radio their point of view, and Voice of America that point of view, and Radio Canada our point of view. And it was everybody. You could listen to all of that. And that was cool, where today something would happen. One of the things that could be done is, it's easy to block a website. It's easy to shut down the internet for some stuff that you don't want or don't like to be there. It's possible, and that's the problem. Ray Carlisi, nice to have you here from Delaware, New Jersey. Pretty cool. John Trigger, totally agree. The internet is the boogeyman. Everyone points for the decline of shortwave, but it was on the slide before the rise of the interwebs. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we already had lost by the time the internet was ready, because my first connection to the internet. So my first email that always amazed me, the first email I've ever had was an email in 1992. And the way that it worked is there was an email client. It was not anything with, a web browser or anything in 1992. I had I think it was on Windows 3.1, a program, and I would actually have a dial-up modem. The dial-up modem would go to a BBS. That BBS gave access to what was email, which had that famous name at whatever, like today. It's the same format as today. So I used email for the first time in 1992. The email that I had at the time was for a project that I was with, and we needed to have fast communications. But when you come out of a Commodore computer and an Amiga 500, fast communications for you is like, well, I'm going to send that thing in 3 days. Somebody's going to reply, or for me it was more like a BBS thing. I'm going to send this, and later tonight somebody's going to answer. But at the other end, the person was already there. And when I sent my email, I was so amazed that I got a reply like 10 minutes later. And I was like, Man, this is so fast. The guy is in, you know, California. In 10 minutes, I send him an email. 10 minutes later, I got a reply. I was so surprised. I was something like, "Wow, this is kind of cool." And I understood that, and I talked to a friend that knew this, and I said, that email thing? He says, "Oh yeah, that's instantaneous. When you send it, it's there, a second later." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that." I didn't have the knowledge on that side of things yet, at least. And my first computer that actually had a web browser, once again through dial-up, I had a 56K modem. 1997-ish, something like that. And I had subscribed to my first internet uh, my first internet service provider, which was a small private ISP here. I think I was using a 486 DX100 at the time, which was very slow to show anything on the internet. And even, back then the pages were very, very light compared to today. I mean, just Google logo on the Google page today is heavier to show up on your PC than the pages that were available back then that had very little graphics to it. If you guys want to see one experiment, I don't remember what the link is or who posted, but somebody posted viewing the Google website at different baud rates. So using a 300 baud modem, 1200 baud modem, and so on. And even at 56K, Google's logo, it takes a little bit of time. That's where you see that we've grown to being accustomed to these things that are heavier than they were before, but because we have speed and power, it looks, like there's nothing there. But what I wanted to come up to is I remember that the first thing I searched, you guys are probably going to not be surprised. The first thing I searched for on I believe was Yahoo. I wasn't on Yahoo first. There was something else. Then there was Yahoo. That was so amazing. Yahoo was that thing. And I remember the first thing that I typed was shortwave radio. And dozens and dozens of pages showed up with different things of shortwave radio. And I was so surprised at how all of that was online. And so, that during that transition time from my first email in 92, 91, 92, first internet connection in 97-ish, shortwave had already lost a certain number of stations that were off the air. And there were a lot of shortwave broadcasters that were still on, but had considerably lowered the number of hours of transmissions. So, it shows you that the internet had nothing to do, because and I'm trying to remember the first time I streamed, it was streaming audio. And I remember it was like real, how was it called? Was it Real Player or something like that? It was in Real Media or there's something like that. And you had streaming audio at a very low bit rate, then video showed up. They had that very compressed video possibility, and you could actually stream a little square of video of the internet, and you're like, oh wow. I still remember viewing an event, and that Real Player thing was so efficient that you could actually have an okay image, because it was not HD, to forget it, an okay image streaming live from that event. And I was still remember being amazed at, wow, this is so cool. I'm streaming video from somewhere over the internet. And that was on a 56K modem. It was capable of streaming video on 56K modems. So, that wasn't until the end of the 90s that streaming audio stuff started, and very crappy streaming of videos started because the internet wasn't powerful at the time. Our speeds weren't good. I got my first high-speed internet connection at 1 megabits per second in the year, I think it was 1999 or 2000. I wasn't living here. It was about a year before I moved from my old place, so would be probably 1999. I had registered to receive that the email from the ISP to tell me that hey, high-speed internet is finally on your street, and 1 megabits per second. And I remember the first night I got that installed on a Friday. I was working, and they installed it on a Friday, and I came home, and the modem was there. The guy had set up everything, and I still remember going on the internet at 1 megabits per second and saying, man, this is so fast. And I mean, today I'm got a 300 megabit connection, So shortwave was declining already there. So it's not, the internet, if the internet itself had killed shortwave, it would have killed it at the point where it was getting easy to get streaming of audio and video and stuff. And the decline didn't go faster back when that happened. It was already going at a certain pace, and it simply continued. And the other thing to remember about not, what a lot of people say, well, they went on the internet. No, the majority of shortwave broadcasters just ended. They didn't go on the internet. There's that false idea that, well, they all went on the internet. No, they didn't. The majority of them, there's, a small chunk of shortwave broadcasters decided, let's try, streaming on the internet or podcasting our show. But the majority of them didn't. I mean, Radio Netherlands, when it decided, we're gone, they were gone. And a lot of shortwave broadcasters, that's only what happened. If the internet had killed them because the internet existed, they would have gone to the internet, and we would be maybe today saying, oh, here's the schedules of all the stations through the internet. And when somebody comes up to me and says, well, we've got countries all around the world with the internet. Yeah, they're all local broadcasters from the country that are all in languages I don't understand, because apart from, the UK and France and a few countries like that, the majority broadcast in their native language in their own country. I don't understand Norwegian or Swedish or Finnish or German, So when somebody comes up to me and says, well, it's all on the internet today, we listen to the world. No, you don't. You don't understand a thing they're saying. And the only thing you listen, and the only thing that most people do listen on the internet, is music. And that's what I do. There are a few things. I mean, there's like the BBC. When I can't get my BBC NewsHour stuff, I will stream it from the internet. I'll ask my Google Assistant to do it. It does happen, but I prefer listening to it on the radio if possible. But there's a very limited impact of the internet on shortwave. The shortwave decline is really something that has to do with changes in politics, and the Cold War ending, and the countries needing money for things. And what do you do? Well, you search for where it's easy to cut off something that you think is unnecessary. What else do we have? Frank Ireland. The Ethon Satellite Executive or and the XH Data D808, which would you most recommend? That's a tough one because I don't have the Satellite Executive. I have read a lot about people loving that radio. So I don't have one to test, but I would say that they seem to be very good, both of them. So I can't say if one is better than the other because of lack of the knowledge of that. But I will say that I've read enough and seen enough on the Ethon Satellite Executive to say that seems to be very good radio too. And that whatever you choose, probably you'll be happy anyway. What else do we have? Hubert Major. Nice to have you here. Still waiting for the RSP1A to come. So maybe able to use it by summertime. Yeah, you know what, Hubert? You might have it faster than you think. Because, I mean, the dates that we see on the eBay websites and stuff are often, really far ahead. But you'd be surprised at how fast it can arrive. You might have it faster than you think. Yeah, Eton Elite Satellite is delayed 2021, and actually everybody that was taking advanced orders are now stopping that. You know what scares me of that? Because there's something that scares me of that. Remember that as we're moving on, shortwave radios, like look at Texan saying that they're doing their last big shortwave receivers. The further to be delayed, the higher the chance of that thing never coming to light. It's not even in production yet at all. It's still in kind of the end of the development stage. So that's, as long as they have yet not been able to make it in production, anything can happen. Sarah Mason, nice to have you here. Gustavo Pinto. Romanian is a Latin language. It sounds like Portuguese, Spanish, Italian. It's very phonetical, like Portuguese. Yeah, I would say what you're saying here. I would say that maybe I would. There's sounds that I would easily kind of see from like Italian out of it. Jason McGee, if need one shortwave radio for emergency preparation, which do you recommend? It depends what you want. If it's for emergency purposes, meaning local emergencies too, my first idea would probably go to the Sea Crane Skywave SSB for a very simple reason. It has the NOAA weather band with weather alert feature. So for emergency preparation, not only is it a good shortwave radio, but it also has local weather stations, NOAA weather stations. So for that, I would say, and that's if you're in the US and Canada. But for the rest, if you're looking for shortwave radio, it depends what type of emergency and what you want to listen to exactly, because there are some emergency radios out there with, do you need an emergency radio that would need to be powered by other means than just regular batteries and stuff, But or else, a Radio R108 or an XH Data D808 are great radios for that. Philip Sauvy, does anyone know someone who could repair a 20-year-old Grundig Yacht Boy P2000 Porsche design shortwave radio? Youch, that is a good question. That is a very good question. Understand the times. Good night. Take care. KC8KSK. What else do we have? What else do we have here? Um, what else do we have? Rufus New 300 baud. Yeah, that was my first modem also. 300 baud. Raymond Martin. Nice to have you here, Raymond Martin. I was interested to hear that the Ethon Elite satellite is being delayed until 2021. I had assumed it would be out in July 2020. No, it's not even in production. Like I said, it's not even in production yet. Absolutely, John Doe. It is great that some shortwave radios came out, actually. It's gonna be nice to see how long we're gonna have new shortwave radios, honestly. Hey Matt, nice to have you on board. Says I knew there was something I was forgetting. From Colorado. Hey Red Hat Shortwave. Nice to have you here. Yep, pretty good here too. Hope you are well too, my friends. Oh man. Fred Newland. I got an MLA30 a few weeks ago. I like it. I only have used it indoors. Maybe have maybe only 3 hours of usage on it today. I tried to use it for the first time and it is dead. Make sure that everything is well connected, my friend, because most of the times it's just the connections. Most of the times it's just the connections. It's not set. It's not connected right. Is the light, the LED on the power inserter actually on when you use it? Frenulin says, I tried swapping out all the cables and power sources and used 3 different radios, but it's still dead. It is powered. I can see the blue light. Any ideas? It should be working. If you see the light on, it should be working. Make sure that you set it. Make sure that you check stuff real well. William Helms. I think there was like I remember Ask Jeeves or something like that, but no, it was something else. But I remember, oh man, Yahoo was something until Google arrived and showed that Yahoo had it all wrong. Omar Mang, nice to have you here from Florida. There's Ali Crafter's Kitchen, global supply chain disrupted by the virus. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things that are manufactured. And, there's a lot of places where the manufacturing process moved to other things that were more important temporarily. So, William Moser, is it possible to receive a non-directional beacon on medium wave? Because the other day, I think I got one on medium wave, or am I going crazy? You might have, so 2 possibilities with this, William Moser. If you are at the bottom end of the medium wave band, it's not impossible. The last few non-directional beacons that are on the air are like they're something like 520 or 530 kilohertz. So if you were at the bottom end of your radio, at the bottom 500 and some kilohertz, and if your radio, because depending on some radios actually go a little further than what is actually advertised. If you heard something there with Morse code, it's totally possible you did. The other thing is, if there is a non-directional beacon that's not too far from where you live that was very strong, it's possible that an image of it appeared on the medium wave band. So that's also possible. And on some, I don't know what radio you used, but on some radios, and I haven't seen that effect in a long time, But on some radios that were cheap with medium wave, sometimes you could hear some radio teletype or Morse code signals in the AM band, which was some kind of spurious signal or an image. Andy Crew, what's a good radio for synchronous AM reception? The PL660 is pretty decent. The Texan PL660. I believe the Ethon Executive, the Elite Ethon Executive, I think has synchronous detection, and I believe it's pretty good. Old Radio Man. If money were no object for local and shortwave emergencies, would you like the Seacrane Skywave or the ICOM R30? I would take the Seacrane Skywave anytime. The now the ICOM, because you can't, it's not fair to compare both of those for a very simple reason. The ICOM ICR30, of course, has a wideband receiver, so technically, in an emergency, it could be nice to have the capability to tune around VHF, UHF signals, because there could be a lot of stuff in there that could help out. So it's not fair to compare both of them, honestly. So if you want to listen to more signals, the R30 has that capability of receiving the local bands of VHF, UHF, and maybe hearing some communications you'd like. Where the Seacrane short Skywave is just an AM FM shortwave radio with airband and NOAA weather. So it's missing out on a lot of frequencies the R30 is capable of doing. John Doe says, if Texas never produces these radios, then the pre-production can be sold on eBay for $2,000 or more, extra rare. And they're not worth it that. If somebody buys that, I mean, come on. If somebody buys a Texan H501 for $2,000, ain't worth it. Ain't worth it. You're getting screwed at $2,000. I'm very close to saying you're getting screwed at 600. So, and they are pre-production. So these are the first, the ones that are showing up. It's very simple. The first few hundred that they made are the ones popping up everywhere being sold right now. And Texan, as of yet, Texan has not said they're not doing it. But Texan did have a warning. When they talked about production, it wasn't very clear if they would have production or enough production to actually sell around the world. So it's a tough one, What else do we have? Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. So it's even worse than that, Frank Ireland, because they did say that Eton's Satellite Elite will not be available until 2021. Jeff Barry, when using the MLA30 antenna, does it bring in more stations or just makes the ones you can receive clearer? Technically, it receives the same thing. It's just that a lot of the signals are easier or capable of being received because the noise level is lower. That's the beauty of a magnetic loop antenna, is that in noisy environments, what it does is it's capable of bringing in those signals because it lowers the noise floor of your radio. So if you compare my sloper in the backyard with the MLA30, the same signals are there on both, but my sloper the noise level is so high that I can't get this. Most of the stations that I'm receiving with the MLA30 are washed in the noise. I hear them in the noise. It's impossible to make out. A great example: when I wake up in the morning, my new way of shortwave life, if I could say, is CFRX in Toronto 6070. That was impossible to hear, except when it was very, very powerful, when propagation was amazing, because it was washed out in the noise. I could see it's there. I could hear something in the noise, but I never could understand the program. Well, the MLA30, it lowered the noise floor just enough that I can actually clearly listen to their programs and understand what they're saying. So it doesn't bring in more signals than a wire antenna will bring. It makes them come out of the noise. John Doe, so we got Chinese-made Grundigs and Ethons. Why didn't Sony just slap their name of Texan instead of totally left shortwave? Because it's just not worth it. It was just not worth it at all. And Sony, a company as a brand doesn't sell its name like that. So, but the shortwave market is, getting probably more and more difficult. There's obviously still money to be made because, Texan makes money, makes radios, and and remember that the Grundigs and the Ethons are Chinese-made radios, often from some of the Chinese manufacturers. Even the Skywave, the C Crane Skywaves are made by Redson, which is a Chinese shortwave radio manufacturer. So, and Sony left because I don't know where the Sony 7600 was manufactured, but it was still manufactured in Japan. It cost so much to manufacture that they never could make money out of that. Harry Crab says we don't have emergency radio band in the UK. I guess because we are a small island and don't get all that much extreme weather. We do have a good emergency amateur radio network. Yeah, but every country does have its share. The UK was battered with these bad storms. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Every country has at some point, at some place, some bad weather. It could be a really bad thunderstorm, and I'm sure that in UK it might not happen often, but I'm sure that you guys in the UK probably at some point have seen a tornado somewhere. It's like here in Quebec, tornadoes are not often seen, but they do happen. And it's funny because I personally find that the Environment Canada weather channels are super important. And I'm pretty sure that most of you out there in the US find that your NOAA weather stations are very important. Because when bad weather strikes, there's a source of information about weather and what's happening with the weather thanks to these. And there's the alerts and all of that. I am surprised that in Europe there were never any such system that was, I remember when I heard of Environment Canada, and subsequently learned that NOAA weather existed in the US on the same frequencies. At that time, long time ago, in the 90s, I assumed that this must have been something that was international. There's an international ring of weather stations on those frequencies, and you can get them. And it's later on that I learned, oh, this is just US and Canada and nowhere else. It's kind of weird, Um, what else do we have? What else do we have? Um, just make sure that I've not missed out on anything. William Moser was using a Stexon PL606. Yeah, were you in the bottom of the medium wave band? Out of curiosity. What's the drink tonight, John Doe? It's vodka and juice. Wannabe, is Facebook sick to be on? I don't really have much of an opinion on that. Everywhere you go on the internet, you're tracked anyway. Of course, if I had, sorry guys, something secret to do, I would probably not be doing it on Facebook. What else do we have? Scott Lambert, nice to have you here. Red Hat Shortwave. Speaking of which, sitting down to dinner now. Pork chops with sauteed peppers and mashed potatoes. Bon appetit. Cool. I had mac and cheese today, just before the show. Henry Lyles, what's your favorite scanner? I was thinking about buying the Uniden SDS 100 or 200, but both are pricey. If you're talking about the new ones that are available today, I've heard some good things about the Uniden SDS 100 that some people seem to love. And one that is also very popular and people seem to love is the Whistler TRX1. So whatever you do, don't buy the ICOM ICR30. That thing is in a big city, and that thing overloads everywhere. Not worth it the price at all, unfortunately. LSWUK, nice to have you on board. I'm interested to know what is the most memorable thing you've heard on the radio. The memorable thing that I've heard on the radio. There's a few things that I heard on the radio. Depends on also where all of it is. But if we pin it down to shortwave radio, some of the interesting stuff that I remember, memorable stuff that I've heard, I still to this day remember hearing the first time that Radio Moscow, I was listening to the Radio Moscow news bulletin. And Radio Moscow had just announced in that news bulletin, and it was the first time they mentioned it, that the Chernobyl nuclear plant in the Ukraine had an accident. That's something that you pretty much cannot forget. There was some stuff, like hearing one that I will always remember, hearing a emergency safety crew in the maritime frequency range around 5 megahertz rescuing passengers from a boat that was on fire in the Atlantic Ocean, near and at the off the coast of I think it was New Jersey, New England. Sorry, New England. What else? There's a lot. If I would start thinking about it slowly or look at my QSL collection, there are dozens of world events that shaped some of the stuff that I've heard over shortwave over time, that brings you in that moment, in that event suddenly. One of the memorable things that I've heard, when I say you never know what you're going to hear, when I was at Perry Island like 3 years ago, and there's a video on my channel actually. There is a emergency communications where a plane is having a passenger that is having a heart attack, and they're patching in the doctor to help direct the crew as to what to do. There are things like that I'll never forget, for sure. And there are dozens of others that just don't spring to mind right now. But there's so many things that I've heard over the years. Crazy. Some of them I wish I had recorded, Ray Carlisi says, I've been having a hard time understanding Arnie Coro lately. Also of DXers Unlimited. Radio Havana's signal is always strong in New Jersey around 02. Yeah, the problem is their transmissions are super distorted, which also makes Glenn Hauser rant at Arnie Coro and Radio Havana Cuba. But so often, it's so distorted. If I look right now, let's look at 6,000 kilohertz. Right now, like I understand the announcer in 6,000 kilohertz right now, but it's definitely distorted. Definitely distorted. But 6,000 is. It's understandable, but it's like not always the same. Sometimes there's almost nothing. Sometimes it's super distorted, just crazy. Raymond Martin, Alex Jones, this Prison Planet show on weekdays, 12:04 p.m., 12:160 is a bit different on shortwave. Yeah, every time I hear him is when I accidentally tune in. I start tuning in and searching for signals, and then I cross 12:160, and it's like, oh, Alex Jones. Comex 1976, nice to have you here. John Doe says InfoWars on 4840. Time to get my tinfoil hats. Oh man, and have my Emily 30s that suck the airwaves. Keegan, earlier this month, I set up my Radio Shack 12589 AM FM weather band radio from 2012 with a 300 home, 275 home external antenna connection. Cool. I have one here, a Uniden weather station. It's pretty cool. What else do we have? What else to have? William Helms, you got to be careful. And be careful what you eat. Make some exercise. It's going to help you out. And if you have a little bit of overweight, try to slim down a bit. Mike Thornton, nice to have you here from Kansas, WC0L. LSW says, UK, thanks for sharing your radio memories. It would be great to hear some more videos on this, as well as Facebook followers sharing theirs too. I came across this morning an idea while I was thinking of the shortwave for beginners. I was thinking of doing a series called Shortwave Stories from the Past. Because when I sit down and start looking at the QSL cards, I get tons and tons of things that happened through my, almost like 38 years of shortwave listening that come to mind, and I could actually make stories out of them and post videos with those stories with either QSL and things that I could show that would remind me of, but not just that, stories of also funny stories of like me being a newbie and not understanding a thing that I'm doing and thinking that something's wrong or radio's broken, or and I thought this could be kind of a fun side, the funny stories of the shortwave guy, of all sorts of little things that happened through his life in shortwave radio, and so on. So I'm gonna look at that because I think that could be entertaining for you guys to have. Also, I know a lot of you guys are very, very entertained at the QSL videos that I posted because the QSL cards have a story behind them. And you know what? I have a lot of those memories that are coming back because I am scanning. I'm maybe I don't know, 60% done right now. I'm scanning my QSL collection to have all of the cards in digital format. And as I'm scanning, of course, I see those old cards, and it brings back memories of shortwave from the past. And I need to like put down all of these ideas and these stories and make videos. And I think that could be a lot of fun to do as a series. The stories of the shortwave stories from the past or something like that. um Raymond Martin says, I remember when Castro's Cuba came on shortwave around 1960 when I started in a medium wave shortwave, then 1962 in amateur radio as WV2 ZPD, also as KBG 7077 at 18 for CB. Wow. Here's Ali Crouchers. Glenn Hauser has been ranting at everyone lately. He's trying to reignite the feud with Brother Stare, jabbing at him about his upcoming court case. I like it. It's when I still remember when I got into a Brother Stare broadcast, and I was about to leave because I never listened to that idiot. But what made me stay is I heard, I would like to say to Mr. Hauser, and I was like, what? And he said, I would like to say to Mr. Hauser that I'm spending millions of dollars in these broadcasts around the world, and that maybe he should, mind his own business and stuff. And it's like, oh boy, okay, this is a rant between Glenn Hauser and Brother Stare. And I've always wondered, somebody must have told Brother Stare about Glenn Hauser ranting at him, because I mean, how could he know? It was crazy. Ralph Rollman 336 is for me. I heard a B-52 on a bombing exercise to Hawaii when they suffered a mid-air collision with a KC-135 tanker. Refueling probe punched into the cabin area. Oh man. Raymond Martin. I know Bob Zanotti from Swiss Radio International back in their broadcast days and met him at a shortwave fest in Pennsylvania in 1995. Wow. These are big, well-known names of the shortwave. Michael Absher, nice to have you here. Really love listening to shortwave, but I'm waiting to get my technician's ham license. Cool. Brother Stare is in trouble with the law because he is a grabber of little kids. and we're not going to extend on the subject. So Rifleman 236, emergency landing. Never forgot the B-52 pilot asking for explosive experts. He didn't know if the bombs had armed. Wow. Crazy. What else do we have? What else do we have? Like Miguel Delmage, can you send me some info on how you are scanning your QSLs? I have just set up a scanner and was wondering how you store them from back. Okay, so you know what I do is I scan the card, the front and the back, and the only thing I do is put a number. So, for example, one of the problems with a folder in Windows to have them following each other is having an order that keeps them going in the correct order and not being all messed up with, Radio Romania front and Radio Moscow back, and it's like it doesn't match. So what I started doing is simply giving them a number. So what I do is, for example, if I scan a QSL card from Radio Moscow, I'll put the number where I'm now at. So, the first QSL card I scanned, I gave it number 1. Then I gave it Radio Moscow, QSL 6 September 1983. And then I put the same information exactly, except that I put number 2 for the back. So when you look at them, 1 and 2. 1 is the front, 2 is the back. The next card that I scanned, say Radio Slovakia, that was card number 3 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, they all follow. So that means that if you do a presentation or anything, or if you let Windows just go through slides, because they are numbered, they're always going in the right order. And it's always the front and the back, the front and the back, the front and the back that match. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, in the name, it's the same name for both. It's just the number that changes. That's the way I do it. The other way you could do it also is to, that would be another way, is to do use Paint or use a small program that you can take both cards and put them together as one card and front and back on the same page. That would be another way of doing it. I had thought of doing it like that at first, to have the front and the back on one picture, by gluing them together with a piece of a program that would simply be putting the two pictures together, and that's it, and saving them as QSL card from that date, blah blah blah. So that's another way of doing it. That way has the advantage of having less files, because right now the way I do it, it actually gives 2 pictures for each card, where if you use a piece of software and put the 2 pictures together, you would have only 1 picture per card. But I don't know, I got used to the way I do it, so it's like, and I thought the way I do it, what's fun is, if I would it's just like I have a picture frame here that I could put pictures that would cycle through. I was thinking that what would be cool is take all the front of the cards and put them in a memory card and have them cycle through in the frame, in the picture frame, which would be nice. So that's the way I do it. And I'm sure some that have done it probably do it in different ways also. What else do we have? What else do we have? Hey, Prasad, nice to have you here. Prasad from India. Prasad Asaldekar from India. Nice to have you here. And I hope you are best of health also, my friend. There's other crafter says, oh man, now I have to dig out my QSLs, all the countries and stations that no longer exist. Another thing that you could do also, Mickey, a suggestion is doing folders. You could do a folders with countries and put all the cars from, like if you have QSL cars from different stations in Australia, make a folder called Australia. Put all the QSL cars of Australia in one folder. So you know that each folder contains only, that country's QSLs. That also is another way that could be nice to oh look, this is my QSL cars that come from Papua New Guinea or whatever. You just go to the folder with the country name on it. That could be a nice way of doing it also. I use 300 DPI for the QSLs. I don't really go higher than that because they might look good, but most of them are old QSL cards with pictures taken from 1970s and 80s, so they're not very high quality. So you have to choose. I chose 300 DPI for the size versus quality of the image. At 300 DPI, the pictures aren't too big for in megabytes, and they are of decent quality if you want to do a printout. I should actually print one out and show you guys. If you print it on photo paper full page at 300 DPI, looks decent. But they are all old. Most of them are old cards, so the quality isn't that great already, anyways. So I found that 300 DPI is enough. And even at 300 DPI, you see the grain of you can see the grain of the card. Actually, it's crazy. Raymond Martin says a B-52 in the air and recently got booked from earlier 2000s about B-52 and an air crash in this incident book. Reminds me of a documentary that I saw and was amazed at the number of nuclear bombs that there is in the bottom of the ocean. You thought that they would take care of these things, but apparently a lot of carelessness about these bombs. And not just the US, Russia also. There's like hundreds of bombs in the bottom of the ocean everywhere. It's like, okay, that's nice. Nice to know. Raymond Martin says, I had a QSL from XERF 1570 kilohertz from Mexico, 1962. Cool. These are great QSLs to keep, honestly. Ray Carlisi says, I have all my old QSL cards protected in a photo album. I'm also thinking of scanning them and creating a digital album. There's two reasons, because mine are also protected in my books. But the reason I'm scanning them is also because I put them in the cloud so that if there would happen, you never want that, and chances are low that it could happen, but it could still happen. If there would be a fire, I would lose the collection, which would be very sad for me to, if there are things, I'm not attached to the material things much. So, if my computer goes on flames, I'll buy another computer. I have insurance and all of that. But the things that you can't replace, QSL cards, you can't replace QSL cards. These are a lot of hard work over all the years of shortwave listening. You lose that, it's sad. It's like your collection's gone. So by scanning them and making sure there's a copy in the cloud, well, I know that if something would happen, I have a digital copy of all of these cards that I used to own on paper, which is another way of keeping them. Harry Crab, thanks for the nice stream. And check out the other stuff. Take care, my friend, and stay safe. Raymond Martin says, I had many amateur radio QSLs and award certificates, which from many years ago to a few years ago, I shipped my binders to a ham in the Midwest who archives old QSLs. Cool. Cool. Others Ali Crafter says, I'm a bad influence. Now I want to do all these things I no longer have time to do or buy gear I no longer have money for. Well, when I got my EcoThank Epson printer, the first thing, because it comes with a scanner, the first thing I thought was, okay, it's time to scan the cards and have a digital copy of them. So, I might even go Mickey. I might actually, because right now I'm just scanning them, giving them a number. I'm like at like 700. um, what I might do after all of them are scanned, I might actually do folders and start going through them and um, making sure that each country has its cards. Makes it easier to find. But then again, it's easy to find the cards from the same country. Also, the way I did it, you just use the search feature and you type, because the name is there, you just type Radio Australia and it just pops up all the files of Radio Australia, all the pictures. So that works well also. But having folders could be nice also. Raymond Martin says, yes, the U.S. Air Force dropped inadvertently nuclear weapons. Yeah. Yeah, Broken Arrow, I remember seeing also a documentary on that. Take care, Red Hat Shortwave. Stay safe. Hey, guys, I've been on for 2 hours and 21 minutes. I will also take my the rest of the evening relaxing and continuing to tune the shortwave bands a little more. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It was nice to have you on board, everybody. We had a nice show up of people. Hope that everybody stays safe wherever you are around the world. We'll be back on Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 20 hours Universal Time. And basically, hope that you are all okay and stay safe, my friends. Kimberly, yeah, okay, I'll try it on Friday. Can you be, if you're there on Friday, I'm going to try it Friday. Remember to tell me, because it's kind of a little difficult to do the window peak the way I'm set up right now. It's going to be easier on the Friday setup with the camera and the way that the stuff are. So keep that in mind. Ask me Friday. I'll promise I'll do it Friday, Kimberly. Nothing much, actually, anyways. You'll just see, cars and darkness, and there's not a lot happening right now. So, Jason Francis in Ottawa, take care. It's nice to have you here. John Trieger, stay safe. Everybody stay safe. And it's always nice to have you on board, my friends. So take care. And I will live it anyway. I'll show you Friday. We'll promise. So take care. See you Friday, everybody. Stay safe, like I said, and love you all. Love you all. Bye.